Hello everybody, hope you're doing well and thanks for joining us for another video. Now I realise all my videos for the past 3 months have all been centred around the final experiment, going to Antarctica and the 24-hour sun. Well, this video is going to shift away from that, although granted it is still about the sun. You see, almost a year ago, I published this video laying out what I think is one of the easiest and most conclusive observations that most people can make to show that clearly that we cannot live on a flat Earth, which is that just before sunrise or just after sunset, if you happen to see a plane flying directly between you and the direction of the sun, you can often see the sun clearly reflecting off the underside of the plane. And the only way that you can have direct light on the underside of an object is if the light source is lower than the horizontal of that object. I.e., if you walk into a dark room and you turn on the ceiling light, the top of a table will be in direct light, but the underside of the table will be shaded. There will be an ambient light reflecting onto the underside from, like, the floor and the rest of the room, but no direct light. To get direct light onto the underside of the table, you need the light source to be moved below the horizontal of the table. So direct sunlight on the underside of an aeroplane requires either the plane to be physically at a higher altitude than the sun, or the Earth to be a globe. And that video seemed to resonate with people because I've seen now a few ex-flat earthers attribute that video as part of the reason how they come to realise that the Earth can't be flat. However, flat earther Joe Hanvey has put out now 2 response videos attempting to debunk this observation. The first one, he filmed a plane and said that the sun didn't reflect off the underside of it, even though it clearly did. So I made a video in response to that back in October, highlighting that you can't always see the sun reflect off the underside of a plane, but the fact that you do ever see it reflect off the underside of a plane shows the Earth can't be flat. And then a few weeks after that, Joe followed up with another video where he claims to show it is possible for the sun to light up the underside of a plane on a flat Earth.
You can see these reflections coming off the top, but from underneath it looks like they're coming off the bottom. They're definitely coming off the top. The laser's coming down from the top. This is with the laser actually focusing on the plane versus just being on the wall down the hallway. You can see it looks like it's coming from the bottom. It's lighting up the bottom. It's lighting up the bottom. It's lighting up the bottom.
Now, Joe put that video out in early November. At that point, I'd already had a few other videos in the pipeline that I was working on, and then my focus shifted to Antarctica. So I've not had a chance to put together a response until now. But as soon as I saw Joe's video, there was a massive red flag with it for me. My first question to myself was, why has Joe elected to use a laser? In one of his clips, he's got a ceiling light in the background, which would have made a perfectly good sun for the purpose of that demonstration, but instead he's gone with a high-powered laser. Well, Joe is not the only one of us in possession of a laser and a model plane, so I repeated his test using my own equipment, and sure enough, I could get the bottom of the plane to glow. But it was immediately apparent that the glow was not the laser light shining directly onto the underside of the plane, but rather the light shining through the plastic body from above and making the inside of the plane glow, which obviously is not a fair representation of reality. The funny thing is, in the very original video that I did where I claim this was the easiest observation for people to make to show the Earth can't be flat, there were quite a few people in the comments pointing out that this is the same basic concept as when we see light on the undersides of clouds at sunset, and seeing clouds at sunset is even easier than planes, so surely clouds would be a better observation to go with. However, the reason why I opted to focus on planes rather than clouds is for exactly this reason. Because I've seen flat earthers say that the reason we see the undersides of clouds being lit at sunset is because the light is shining through the cloud from above. Well, that explanation does not work with a plane because sunlight cannot pass through the metal skin of an aeroplane. Yet it seems Joe's examples are relying on a high-powered light from a laser passing through the plane to cause the underside of it to glow. Although Joe claims that the reason the underside is being lit is because the light is wrapping around the curved surface of the plane.
So you can see how it looks like light is showing up on the bottom of the airplane when it's just reflected light wrapping around the rounded shiny metal hull, the rounded shiny metal wings, and creating mirror flashes in certain positions that flash down to you to make it look like it's coming off the bottom when it's actually not coming off the bottom at all. So you can see clearly, look at all that light on the bottom of that plane there.
Well, that idea is very easy to test and debunk, because if the light is wrapping around the curved metal surface of the plane, then light would wrap around every curved metal surface. Yet if you take any metal cylindrical object and you shine a light at it, you'll find that the light suddenly stops when it reaches the halfway point, and the back half of the object remains shaded. As I say, the glow that we're seeing on the undersides of these planes appears to actually be the light passing through the thin plastic of the toy plane. But there is an easy way to test this. If I line the top portion of the plane with a few layers of duct tape, that will prevent the light from passing through the plastic. So, if Joe is right, then the underside of the plane should glow the same before and after the duct tape is applied, because the light would still be free to wrap around the hull. Instead, we actually see the underside no longer glows the same because the light can't get through to the inside, which is a closer match to reality because sunlight can't shine through metal. Another big difference between Joe's demonstrations versus the reality that I laid out is the shadows that appear underneath the plane. In my original video, I highlighted how in several examples we can see clear shadows being cast onto the undersides of the wings from the engines. In this example that I showed, the left wing is lit entirely front to back, not just across the front strip, all the way front to back. But there are obvious shadows casting from the engines, and the engines are below the wing, meaning the light has to be coming from below the plane to cast the shadow up onto the wing. In Joe's examples, where he has the light above the plane, there are no such shadows. Yet in all the examples of his laser demonstration, the middle of the underside stays shaded. Where his toy plane has the wheels attached, that area remains shaded because the light is above the plane. And I also think it's probably that the plastic in that part of the plane is thicker, so the laser can't shine through it. However, I've previously shown examples, and in fact, Joe shows my own example in his own video, where the underside, the flat underside in the middle of an Airbus A380, is clearly lit by sunlight. Something that Joe is not able to replicate with his setup, and something that I was only able to replicate when I lowered the light below the plane. I also did this with a torch instead of a laser, just to show the same thing. And with the torch placed above the plane, the underside is in pitch black. You can see a slight silhouette around the edges of it and some light leaking through the non-duct taped areas of plastic, but no light to the underside. When I then move the torch below the plane, we not only see the flat underside in the middle being clearly lit, but we also see the engines casting shadows up onto the undersides of the wings, exactly like we do in reality. Joe then ends the video by bringing up other photos of planes and trying to claim that the bottoms of them are also being lit by the sun when the sun is above them.
Another one. Looks like there's light on the bottom. Another one. Looks like there's light on the bottom. Another one. Looks like there's light on the bottom.
Except none of these examples match what I was actually demonstrating in the first place. All of these show the undersides of planes being evenly lit, because none of those photos are actually from sunrise or sunset. They're taken when the sun is at a high angle above the plane, the underside is completely shaded, just how they are when we see planes on the ground. The reason we can actually make out any detail under the plane is because the cameras are being exposed to see those shaded parts of the plane clearly. The difference with the sunrise-sunset examples that I showed is that the full underside of the wing and body are lit. For example, in Joe's examples or in his own demonstrations, you can see that the terminator line, where we move from sunlight into shade, never reaches the center line of the plane. They're always way over one side or the other because the light source is way above the plane. But when you look at the times when the underside of the plane is lit at sunset, the terminator line does reach the center line of the plane. And as I showed before, the light cuts off at halfway around the cylinder. So if the terminator line is hitting the center line of the plane, then the sun cannot be above the plane's horizontal. But then I suppose the more obvious problem with Joe's entire setup here is he is claiming that his demonstration shows that the bottoms of planes can be lit by a light source that is some 45 degrees angled above the plane. Yet we never see the bottoms of planes in direct sunlight with shadows being cast on the underside of the wings until after sunset. If Joe's claims were correct about light wrapping around the plane, then we should see these sorts of things happen in the middle of the afternoon. Now, I suspect Joe's response to that will be along the lines of perspective. That at sunset, the sun is at a low enough angle because it is far enough away over a flat Earth. However, that not only goes against Joe's own demonstrations, where he's apparently showing the underside being lit by a light source that is nowhere near the horizon, but it also doesn't explain the other example that I've previously shown in one of these videos, which is that at sunset, if you are on an aeroplane, if the sun is shining straight through the cabin windows, the light will hit the other side of the cabin above the windows. Now, if you place two cutouts equal height to each other and you shine a light through the first one, it will only hit above the second cutout when the light is angled below the top of the first window. It's just like how the ceilings of aeroplane cockpits or the upper stories of skyscrapers get hit by sunlight at sunset, but only ever right at sunset, just before the sun disappears. For sunlight to be illuminating the ceiling, the light has to be approaching from below the ceiling. That is not happening on a flat Earth unless the penthouse is at a higher altitude than the sun. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. As always, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't already done so, then please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.